Well, over the last 40 years, the World Series has been tied at a game apiece 16 times, and 12 times the team that wins game three goes on to win the World Series. So, pretty important matchup tonight as we are joined by Ben Nicholson-Smith and Arden Zwelling to preview game three between the Rays and the Dodgers. A lot of people not really thrilled, Ben, with the fact that the Dodgers went with a bullpen game in game number two. We don't have to worry about that for either side. It's perhaps one of the best pitching matchups we could have hoped for. But with Charlie Morton going for the Rays tonight, as good as he has been, third time through the order, has been a bit of a problem. So how does that kind of line up for Kevin Cash in the bullpen tonight for game three?
Well, he's been such a good big game pitcher in the course of his career, of course, closing out the 17 World Series and even recently in the ALCS. So Morton's been great, but when you look at the numbers third time through the order this year, he has an OPS allowed of over 1,000. That's a small sample, of course, but it just reinforces the idea that you see league-wide pitchers do falter when they get deeper into these games. So even though the Rays have gone to their starters pretty deep into the game, relatively speaking, tonight they've got to be ready to go to that bullpen after a couple times through the order because, as with all these pitchers, it's better to take them out a little bit too early than leave them in a little bit too long.
It'll be interesting, Ben, because, I think both teams are going to look to rely pretty heavily on their bullpens in game four of this series. The Rays, certainly, because it's likely just a straight bullpen day. And I think the Dodgers will likely throw something of a modified bullpen day. So that does introduce some questions as to how many of your relievers you want to use in game three, considering there's 3 straight days here as well, right? You got 3, 4, and 5 without an off day. Game 5 might be an elimination game for someone. So you're going to want to have a full bullpen game for that one. So I do sort of wonder if the two managers are going to try to push their starters a little bit further. We're not going to see any 7 or 8 inning outings here, but maybe 5, maybe 6. Remember Charlie Morton was pitching really well through 5 2/3 in game 7 of the ALCS. He had thrown only 65 pitches and then he was lifted from that outing. I feel like if he is pitching that well again here in game 3, that he could be extended a little bit further.
Ben, this is not the first time that Walker Buehler has pitched game 3 of a World Series. Did that a couple of years ago and pitched extremely well against the Boston Red Sox. We know how good he is. We know how good of a postseason pitcher he is. But when looking at the Rays lineup, do you see any advantages for Tampa Bay in this matchup against Buehler tonight?
It's a great matchup, and Buehler is pitching extremely well right now. He's actually seen his velocity tick up in the course of October, something that Nick Ashbourne details at sportsnet.ca. But when you look at that matchup against the Rays lineup, they don't have a ton of answers for high velocity pitching. And Randy Arozarena, of course, is one. Brandon Lau, who hit 2 home runs the other day, is another option. Beyond that, there aren't a ton of guys who can match up against the 97, 98, 99 that they're going to see from Walker Buehler. And as we saw in the NLCS, he's someone, if he sees a hitter whose bat speed just isn't there, like Nick Markakis, for example, he will overpower that batter with fastballs that the guy just can't hit. So the Rays hitters, aside from Lau and Arozarena, might be in for a tough night.
Yeah, there's been some cool moments this postseason when Buehler's maybe fallen behind or put a couple of runners on, and then all of a sudden he'll just throw 8 straight fastballs and he'll just leave them on the plate and say, hey, try to hit him. And a lot of times guys can't because it's a really effective pitch even when he throws it in the zone. I think, for the Rays, they have to be ready for that, but they also have to just be trying to carry over some of that offensive momentum that they generated in game 2. You mentioned Brandon Lau with a couple opposite field homers, but it wasn't just him. Joey Wendell had a couple of hits. Manuel Margot had a couple. There was this great moment late in the game when Willie Adames hit a double, and he kind of gets into second base and looks up at the heavens, finally. The Rays offense was just slumping epically through basically the entire ALCS. They didn't hit a lot against the Houston Astros despite winning that series, so they needed to break out of it. And I can only imagine how long this off day would have felt if they hadn't broken out of it in game 2, and if they're facing a 2-game deficit and nobody was hitting. I mean, just the mentally that would have been really stressful and anxious coming into game 3. So I think for the Rays, they can enter game 3 feeling confident at the plate and really trying to execute their approach against Buehler.
Well, there is a chance that the World Series title will be handed out this weekend, but a team will have to sweep the next 3 games starting tonight with game 3 in Arlington, Texas.